Right, 27 minutes past 7 o'clock. We're going to talk about what's available at supermarkets and service stations. And if you enjoy a meal deal, a sandwich, a fizzy drink and a bag of crisps, it usually consists of something like that.
Well, people in Wales may not be able to have this soon, as multi-buy offers with high fat, sugar or salt content are to be restricted in an attempt to tackle obesity and diabetes. But we're asking this morning, is it right for governments to dictate your diet?
Well, here's Baroness Claire Fox. She says...
She's outraged about this. Public health gimmicks are just depriving people of food during a cost of living crisis.
And Amanda Ursell, who's a top nutritionist, thinks the Welsh Government is brave for tackling an obesity epidemic. I tell you what, though, Amanda, a meal deal is all fine if it even tastes nice. Even if it's bad for me, if it tastes nice, that's fine. So much of it is dry and shriveled and, I don't know, sometimes you need bad things to make you feel good. Do you know what I mean, Amanda?
Excuse me. I'm going to sneeze.
Interesting point, Eamon. I think the whole point about this, what the Welsh Government are doing, is they're doing something that we were supposed to be doing in England as well and in Scotland, and part of the obesity strategy, and we've decided not to at the moment. So I think it's a very brave step for the Welsh to go out and actually pursue what was in the obesity strategy. I feel that when it comes down to choice, we talk a lot about choice that's out there and free will, but if the preponderance of food that's being promoted to us is not healthy, then where's the choice in that? I'm all for meal deals if it's an even playing field and the healthier options are also signposted, and actually I think they should be signposted more. And also that we have some kind of education around this where we know that we can actually make our own packed lunches and we don't have to rely on those, that they're less expensive and healthier for us. So I think it's one point here, but there's a much bigger picture that we need to look at as well.
Claire, I can almost hear you shouting at the television this morning that this is nanny state and we're all grown-ups here, leave us alone.
I've been very calm and I'm not shouting at anyone. I think that actually there's a very serious problem at the moment, which is that most people are very worried about the cost of food. And when you go in the supermarket, you're trying to juggle to be able to afford to buy the family what they need. And I actually dispute this notion of unhealthy food, because what's unhealthy is if you haven't got enough food. And a lot of people are going without food. So it seems entirely inappropriate to me that the Welsh Government would choose now of all times. I mean, I know it's not just the Welsh Government. They would all like to do it, but Wales have done it, and I'm from Wales, so feel this rather bitterly. Would choose this time to say that affordable food and deals which will help people cope, get through inflation, putting prices up, is going to be implemented now at the very time when people are trying to juggle what they eat. And the obesity crisis is interesting because the Welsh Government have justified this on the basis that, you know, the obesity crisis puts a lot of pressure on the NHS. And I'm sure that viewers will know that the Welsh NHS has been in a mess for a long time. It's not been because of obesity or because of diabetes or anything else. I mean, they've failed abysmally a range of measures that they themselves set up to assess their own health service. And we've just had lockdown where Wales was particularly punitive in terms of turning the health service into a COVID-only service.
But Claire, are you saying...
They're trying to blame ordinary people for the fact that health service is not good.
That price is the paramount thing, that price is more important than the quality of what you eat?
Well, I'm saying that the quality of what you eat is sometimes mystified. There's no such thing as unhealthy food. Obviously, if you ate any food only at a particular, you know, if you only eat chips or you only eat crisps, that's not good for you. And I'm not suggesting that people don't think about what they eat, and people often do. But I'm also pointing out that we do need to have cheap, nutritious food for people. And a lot of what's described as unhealthy food is actually nutritious. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that in too much of it, you can get into trouble.
Okay.
But these are deals that help you cope and buy food for your family.
I mean, Amanda, that's a fair point. If it's going to drive up prices and, you know, at the end of the day it fills a hungry stomach, then, you know, is it necessarily all bad?
Well, I did a quick analysis last night and looked at a meal deal that was just very typical. I think people would buy a sandwich, a cheese sandwich, a bottle of cola, 500 mils, and a packet of crisps. And if you compare that to just making a sandwich at home, a cheese sandwich at home, having some water, you could have a yogurt and an apple as well. And actually, it was a third of the price and much better nutritionally. So I think there's this. I think not supporting people in making healthier choices and not giving them other options. Meal deals are not the only choice. Supermarkets could be helping to signpost people towards better choices that are less expensive. Why do we have to just assume that a meal deal at lunchtime is the only lunch that we can have? I think we need to look broader at this problem and give people proper choices. And free will is when, and free choice is when there are proper choices. And we need to support people in healthier choices, because if the food environment is promoting foods which in the majority people want to eat because they taste good and it gives them a quick buzz, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do. And I've been, Eamon, you know me, I qualified as a nutritionist in the 1980s. It's a long time ago.
Yes.
I've seen policies come, policies go. I've seen the same problem repeating itself again and again. And unless we actually decide to do something really significant here on a much broader scale, and to not just go down to the lowest common denominator and say it's okay to put, to allow to sort of basically suggest that we support healthier foods over other foods. I think we've got to change that attitude. It's a really big problem that we need to look at.
Amanda, part of our attitude is that we're lazy and we don't want to make our own sandwich, and we're time poor, aren't we?
How difficult is it to get into a routine of making a sandwich before you leave for work? I mean, and when it comes to mandatory things, just to say, the one place where we have seen where mandatory nutrition control works is in school food standards. The government have put standards in for food in schools, and it's changed the types of foods that children are served in school. So we do know that mandatory policies can work.
Okay, a final thought from you, Claire, if you will.
Well, first of all, that's because they're children. And the problem is when the government start treating adults like children. Secondly, many people make their lunch. It's, meal deals are just one option that people have, and it doesn't mean that they have it every day. And I suppose I just get to this situation where you say, people aren't making the right choices. Why don't they do this? Why don't they? And you just think, God, they're going to be sending people into the kitchen every morning to make sure we're making our sandwiches and not being lazy. And this also started with the 2 for the price of, buy one, get one free, those kind of deals, not just meal deals. And the point I was making was we've got less money, ordinary people have got less money to stretch over buying food. And I think that an additional moralistic, guilt-inducing burden where you basically say you're trying to count the pennies, you buy 2 for the price of 3, or whatever it is, was it 3 for the price of 2? And you've then got somebody saying, tut, 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 one kind of food that you're giving your kids. It's just not what we need in 2023 at the moment.